Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Planning Your Workforce During Turbulent Times. We recognize that these are hectic and challenging times for many of us, so we appreciate that you've taken the time to join us for today's session. This webinar is part of our Looking Forward with Workday webinar series, which started over a year ago and has really evolved to allow us to share the ways we support organizational agility and managing your people and business through change. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen is a gray bar with icons for widgets, most of which are already open on your screen. All the widgets are resizable and movable by dragging from the corners, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your screen space. All the way to the left is a help icon. You'll find resources there and information in case you run into any technical issues. There's also a Q&A icon. That's the speech bubble with a question mark in the middle. If you have any questions during the webcast, we encourage you to submit them throughout the session. We'll try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, definitely be assured that we do capture all the questions and we'll follow up on those as well. There's also a resource list open all the way to the right-hand side. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you might find useful, and there's also a link to register for additional upcoming dates of the webinar series. And then all the way to the right, there's a survey link. We encourage you to complete that really brief 3-question survey at the end of the webinar that helps us get feedback on how we're doing with this webinar and get additional ideas on topics that you might be interested for future webinars. So I really encourage you to take a minute at the end of the session to provide that feedback. And then a recording of today's session will be made available approximately 1 day after the webcast and can be accessed using the same link that you used to join the session today. So thanks again for joining us. And before we begin, I do want to take a minute to remind everyone that today's session may contain forward-looking statements or discussion and demonstrations of future products. So as a reminder, Safe Harbor does apply. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Scott.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Scott Gwynn, Product Marketing Director for Workforce Planning and Analytics. I've been part of the planning and analytics solutions market for well over 15 years. That's both as an end user for a CPG manufacturer and a firm in the tech industry, and of course as a solution provider. In the last 6+ years, I've been focused really on workforce planning solutions. I'm very delighted to be partnered by Stephanie. Stephanie, you want to give a quick introduction?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. Stephanie McNally. I'm a solution consultant with Workday, and I focus primarily on our planning solution. I've been with Workday for a little over 2 years, but I've been in the planning space for about 20 years. So nice to meet you all virtually. Scott?
Perfect. And the good news, Stephanie is going to be doing our demo today, which is a good bulk of our session. I'm sure that's why many of you are here. The good news, in terms of Safe Harbor is that everything in the demo is current product. So we look forward to that. Let's go ahead and jump into the agenda. And we'll give you a little preview of what we're going to cover in today's webinar. So first, we're going to talk about the importance of really continuing those HR digital transformations that many of you have already been embarked on for some time. Particularly, though, continuing those as the demands on the business for more insights and agility only intensify in our current environment. We're going to next look at data insights. That's really where the better decisions that you make for your workforce and the better plans begin. And then we'll look at workforce planning, really looking forward and look at the capabilities that adaptive planning for the workforce offers there. We'll jump into a demo where we're going to tie these two solutions together. And then we're going to talk about kind of shore up our discussion with some customer stories, some key takeaways. We'll talk briefly about the impact of COVID within kind of the framework for planning and managing the safe return to the workplace. It's something that we've been working on for our customers as well as our own Workday and Workday team. And we'll, of course, leave some time for Q&A. All right, so our goal for this session is really all about sharing how you as an HR leader, as a business leader, or a workforce analytics and planning professional can make better workforce decisions faster in any business environment, including this one. and even really before the current health crisis. The business environment that we had all been operating on across industries was facing a number of powerful forces. We've all been feeling them, right? Data exploding. And with it, the good news, the ability to mine that data. Regulatory changes impacting global workforces by country, state, province, city, disruptive digital technologies, enabling new business models, of course, but offering some first movers that had the right vision, the right skills to realize that vision, and the right funding, the ability to leap virtually over competitors. Now, we've talked most of last year how business agility had become a determining factor for success in our data-driven, fast-paced world, and then COVID hit. The social and economic impact of this health crisis, turning our private and business lives and the lives of those people that drive our business upside down. And this is a cautionary reminder that agility works both ways, for both good pivots as well as bad. So a little story. Many, many moons ago, before I began my career in enterprise software, fresh out of college, I flew helicopters for the U.S. Navy. My second deployment, my daughter was just not even 2 weeks old. I embarked on a 6-month cruise out to the Persian Gulf as part of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, making our presence known, protecting international waters, that sort of thing. Only about 2/3 of the way there, we were urgently diverted to Somalia to secure the airport in Mogadishu as the beachhead for a humanitarian relief effort to shore up widespread hunger and near starvation among a wide swath of the population there. So that picture that you see right there is us offloading supplies just off the runway. You couldn't even tell by looking at it. It looks like we're in the middle of the desert. But really, the message I have is really our complete change of mission, halfway through, at least for a period of time. Now, the environment we're in today is not Somalia. Our current circumstances, where we are today, we are thankful that we, have deep resources as a nation and countries in general, and better mechanisms to weather this storm. But this pivot to address much more basic people needs, much like what many of you, whether in HR, finance, operations, are going through today, is very real, and it's in parallel with planning for business continuity. So what started out early in the year as a race for talent and a retention challenge, at least for those critical skills that drive your business, this has been upended in many ways. Every one of us has been impacted, both professionally and personally. As HR and business leaders, you've had to completely rethink the impact of the business, now, near term, long term, but also how your workforce plans need to be adjusted in alignment with this environment. Do we keep some of our remote workers remote? How do we get them back to work safely? Josh Bersin has written some timely research talking about that very topic, the topic of COVID, and really offering a big reset opportunity for HR. The link is at the bottom of the screen, as you see. And his last point, number 5, that really hit me. There is a weightiness to the decisions and plans that you are making, a deep need for all of us in HR in this high unemployment environment to get our workforce planning right. So knowing your talent is as critical as ever, but for an increasing number of reasons. Staffing for digital online channels and businesses is actually accelerated for many of you. And so here the challenge of sourcing that talent is still acute. But maybe you're looking even more closely at your own other parts of the business where you can source those people with similar skills or through a modest upskilling effort. For other parts of the business, you're likely faced with rationalizing your current skills capacities of the workforce against forecasts for a new normal that perhaps is less than what it was before. Now, balancing these factors and finding creative ways to retain the talent you worked so hard to grow, getting that right talent in the right role at the right time, this is a daunting challenge, having to reset many of those plans. So Workday can help. First, Workday HCM. As the single source for data for organizations related to the workforce, you get that critical worker data to help both make important business decisions. Perhaps it's in response to the global pandemic, but also it's about making adjustments to your workforce plans for the recovery ahead. one system delivering rich data and insights for a holistic view of the workforce in the context of HR programs and in the context of worker life situations, their work history, their skills, experience that they're bringing. And armed with this information, now you can better prepare and protect your organization's workforce. Say you track essential and remote workers, stay connected to gauge worker sentiment to support them during these really unprecedented times, while simultaneously trying to help your organization maintain business continuity through these near-term shocks to revenue streams and in the face of evolving health guidelines to reopen business locations. My colleague, Vanessa Danziger, she focuses on workforce analytics, likes to remind me that analytics is not all about servicing information to help you in your workforce planning efforts. It's about making better transactional decisions too. And she's right, of course. Indeed, it's all about the data, surfacing that data at the right time for better transactional decisions at almost a daily cadence. And on the right, you can see how that cadence might manifest itself. On the left, it's really about better plans at perhaps a less frequent cadence, but one that was even gaining frequency before the current crisis. Maybe it's from annual to semi-annual to quarterly, monthly, perhaps even more frequently than that if you happen to be in retail or operational functions. In each of these, Workday can help. So workforce analytics help HR teams keep a pulse on the status and needs of their workers as you look to safely reintroduce them to the workplace, monitor risks, rationalize talent in the way of roles, jobs, skills, and by location for near-term needs and the path back to recovery. With Workday HCM, Prism, and People Analytics, you can surface Workday data and external data, including COVID-19 community data, and blend that with high-volume operational data for contextual insights that drive workforce plans and return to the workplace decisions and plans. Each of these analytic solutions are just one piece of a broad set of solutions, what we at Workday talk about as an analytics journey. So at the core, everyone needs clean, secure data. Workday absolutely provides that from a foundational perspective, surfacing that content in the way of dashboards and reports. Prism integrates external data to layer in that contextual data for better decisions and plans. Self-service refers to the capabilities like drill down, slicing and dicing by dimensions that you can leverage with dashboards, reports, or discovery boards. Users get the answers they need on their own with less reliance on IT. And finally, Workday People Analytics, our newest offering, powered by augmented analytics, can scan massive amounts of data quickly to surface and prioritize those insights that you might have otherwise missed, tailored to your role in an easy-to-consume format. So organizations are grappling with difficult new questions from employee well-being, adjusting workforce compensations, optimizing organizational structure, to addressing shifting skills, gaps, and retention. And that's both of critical skills and your top performers. And Workday helps answer these questions, offering a range of delivered customized tools in Core, Prism, and People Analytics to monitor and understand your workforce. From the CEO and the CHRO down to the manager and HR business partner, Workday helps you get the right information into the right hands so that you can effectively guide the organization through these very challenging times that we've got. And with these insights gained, you look forward, taking advantage of Workday Adaptive Planning for the Workforce, offering powerful multidimensional modeling and scenario planning to help organizations both plan for the return of workers to the workplace and strategically plan their workforce for business recovery. Woven together, the intertwining synergies of analytics and planning help you to surface hotspots and opportunities and put in place plans to address them, as identified by HR programs along the employee journey, talent acquisition and onboarding, learning and development, organizational deployment, and retention. And this is a great way to reference, where to get started using adaptive planning for your workforce planning needs. Now, areas where HR leaders often look to address first are typically around organizational deployment, workforce planning use cases, like headcount and cost planning, resource capacity planning, organizational planning, And in the next slide, strategic planning and skills-based planning. All this fits within what we call the workforce planning maturity curve. They then will expand to strategic workforce planning or skills-based planning use cases, starting small and working their way up. Some organizations, however, with a acute need to identify and better plan their critical skills will actually leapfrog all of those and start right off the bat with skills-based planning. Now, we're about to give you a poll question just before I turn it over to Stephanie. But before I do, let's drill down just a little bit. Actually, we did do it. I was going to offer a few insights on these, but let me just do that first. So first, I'll give you a few insights on these skills while we present the poll question. So let's go ahead and see if you can find it there. And starting with headcount and cost planning. Now, perhaps most of you are interested in better collaboration with the business and finance, deploying and combining top-down and bottom-up workforce planning from a single source of data, right? Feeling more confident in the numbers that you agree to and move forward with. Commerce Bank is a good example. We'll be hosting Commerce Bank in about a month in a Looking Forward with Workday webinar, and they've deployed this as an advanced, adaptive planning as an advanced use case for cost planning, compensation planning specifically, really looking to compensate workers by a number of factors: role level, performance, experience, location, and they're very happy with the results. And this is, in fact, where we find most organizations get started. Is it that you're most interested in resource capacity planning? Is your team and operational business partners trying to optimize operational resources against demand? Now, this is a great use case where a number of Workday customers, like Airbus, have focused on at the outset of their workforce planning journey, really trying to manage and optimize their business units to reduce the backlog that they have. And finally, is it strategic or skills-based planning? Now, from strategic planning, this is where you're planning at perhaps the job family level to build out your workforce capacity for an evolving strategy or a major business initiative. Or it could be even something more granular with skills, planning at the critical skills-based level, focusing on those skills and positions that really drive your business forward. And of course, tapping into that rich worker data within Workday, trying to figure out the best combination, bringing those into adaptive planning, the best combination of whether to hire for the skills they need, develop the skills internally, transfer them in, either internally or from other parts of the business or externally, or maybe it's some of these processes where there's repetitive activities, you're introducing automation. So I'll give you lots of time to do the poll question. Let's see the results. Looks like many of you are 50%, in fact, are headcount and cost planning, Stephanie. We've got about 50% that are resource planning. And of course, we were able to identify more than one, so that's great. We have 52% plus of strategic workforce planning, and then talent planning, skills-based planning, 56. So fairly even with the nod going to talent or skills-based planning. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie. We'll kind of go through here. Stephanie, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Scott. So for today's demo, we'll be using a few different personas. We'll start off with Logan, our HR business partner, who will analyze our current workforce with people analytics. Then Chelsea, an individual contributor, will introduce us to Skills Cloud as she manages her skills. Logan will then leverage Skills Cloud to identify employees that have a specific skill set she's looking for. We'll then navigate to our workforce plan, where Logan will conduct some scenario modeling to identify targets or revise headcount targets based on the recent activities with COVID. And we'll finish with Daryl as he builds his budget up to that target. So let's go ahead and get started. A few seconds while I share my screen. Great. So logged in as Logan, McNeil, or can you see it?
Yep, got it.
Perfect. Logged in as Logan McNeil, our HR business partner, and she's going to leverage people analytics to do some analysis of our current workforce. So people analytics delivers pre-built content that is leveraging augmented analytics to continuously surface trends to help drive organizational change versus spending hours trying to find these trends. People analytics gives you insight to take action and promote change in these key areas of your workforce. So diversity and inclusion, organization composition, retention and attrition, hiring or recruiting, and talent and performance. Today, we're going to focus on diversity and inclusion and organization composition for the demo. Each tab is broken into 3 components. So some KPIs, some charts, graphs, and some stories around that. As I scroll down the page, it offers me additional insight and anticipates the second, maybe third level questions I might typically ask, while at the same time providing answers to where I should focus and take action. We can see here we have a concern around female attrition rate. Well, we can drill into this and we get more detail around that. What job profiles are at risk? What area of the organization are we seeing the biggest level of attrition? And today we're going to go ahead and focus in on this consulting services organization. At any point, we can drill into that data and be able to see the detailed data behind that. If I click on that, I can. And you can view that detailed data behind that. So all of that data that we're being able to leverage and render and give us these key analysis and also stories around that. So we're not just seeing that KPI, we're also seeing the stories around that. And then again, as we drill down, we can see where can we improve gender diversity? How can we improve promotion diversity? And maybe we have a key area around promotions within our female workforce. Move on to organization composition. This tab shows me how our internal movement looks within an organization and how we are performing for our span of control, promotion opportunities, organizational depth, and headcount footprint. Our span of control KPI here shows me that we have too many employees per manager. So this could present an opportunity to open management positions and target female employees for these. And then as I scroll down, we can see who's not being promoted, and then again is our consulting services that renders. So very quickly, we saw that we had a problem with female attrition and lack of promotions within the consulting services organization. As we move forward in the workplace with key initiatives, projects, we need to address the resource health issues we are experiencing by looking to promote and develop our female consultants to help effectively manage these projects. We may not be promoting at this time, but what we can do is start to develop skills and train our employees for when we are back to that new normal. And one key component is being able to identify skills individuals have to help me do just that. So now we'll go ahead as our individual contributor, Chelsea, and we'll navigate to her profile to be able to look at her skills. So what Skills Cloud does is ultimately makes it easier for users like Chelsea to manage their skills, and then for managers like Logan to find those individuals that have the right skills to develop and promote. Skills Cloud is more than a library. It's a relational database that is used to normalize skills. Skills Cloud leverages machine learning to understand the relationship between skills over time. So as you can see here, Chelsea has some suggested skills based off of the skills that she has identified. When searching for skills, users will be presented other related suggestions rather than just the pure textual, the pure text match. So if I look at product management, search it. You can see it's not going to just deliver that pure text match. It's going to offer us other suggestions that are related to the skill that I am searching for. Okay. So this is key as we're going through and we're identifying, maybe realigning some of our workforce in today's day and age, being able to identify those skills that are important. So now, as a leader, if we log back in as Logan, it makes it tremendously easier to be able to quickly search, find, and develop or promote the individuals and to add them to a talent pool of emerging leaders. So again, as we adapt to that new normal, being able to easily align our workforce and having insight into the skill set their workforce has. So ultimately, this helps us reduce the risk of losing employees, increasing resource health. So if we look at our find worker report, we can identify those individuals that have a specific job profile or skill that we're looking for. So if we look at our consultant job profile, and then a specific skill within IT management, we can see our friend Chelsea Wood that has a specific job profile and skill set that we need. Again, maybe we're not promoting at this time, but being able to identify a learning path that Chelsea can take to it when we are ready to promote her, she is ready to do so. So we started today by talking about all the foundational data that lives within Workday, the reports, the analytics, and the processes that give us a great starting point to our workforce plan. With Workday, you can always look at historical trends, timestamp reports, or even prompt for future dates. What this can do is give us great insight into where we were, where we are. What this cannot provide for us is truth planning scenarios where we can create multiple different what-if scenarios, multiple different plans, and multiple different reports off of those versions over a period of time. So taking all of this rich foundational data that we've seen and now being able to plan with that. So now we're looking at our workforce summary. A couple of key components I want to highlight. The idea of version. So this is something that Scott mentioned earlier, but the ability to be able to create a new version on the fly and be able to model. So an exercise that took me about 5 minutes, I created a reduction in workforce and then be able to model that, something that a lot of customers are doing. We've seen a 30 times increase in the number of versions that our customers are using since the dawn of COVID. Okay, so you can see I have multiple different versions. I have a long-term strategic look. I have maybe a short-term quarterly forecast. So being able to take all of those actuals that exist in HCM and being able to easily spin off of different versions. Okay. And then the idea of security. So users are only going to see what they have access to. So I am logged in as Logan, our HR business manager, so I have access to the entire organization. But when we log in as Daryl, the consulting manager, he will only have access to that slice of information. And we really can drill on any dimension within the application. So if we want to focus on consulting services, it will dynamically change. As I scroll down, we can see all of the individuals will point all of this rich data from HCM, and we can see all of the details behind that. Okay. We also have, if you click on the row details, you can see how assumptions and drivers are going and are calculating not just the pure salary and headcount, but employee taxes, compensation, and so forth. And these are just some high-level examples, but you can get very intricate with the number of assumptions and drivers that you're leveraging. Everything's dynamic, so if we click on it, we can easily change the graphs. And we can see here right away that what our analysis showed within People Analytics, Forrest is managing 18 employees. Maybe that's a little too much for Forrest to be able to contribute to time to his employees. So maybe that's where we're looking for a promotion within the organization. We can drill down if we want to look down by worker. And there's our friend Chelsea. If we want to drill down to her profile, maybe look at some of the performance data as we're thinking about promoting her. And it will bring us right back into her profile, where we can look at her performance review, etc. So that's really our current headcount. Now we can also bring in open recs. So we are looking at this 2020 plan that we created prior to COVID. As you see, when we navigate over to the reduction in workforce, what I've done is easily frozen all of these requisitions and immediately can see the cost impact with that. But very similar to what we saw with Chelsea, as we're going through our planning process and we have a question on where we are within the hiring process for a specific job, or a specific open requisition. We can drill right into the details and see where we are from on a recruiting perspective. So really tying this all together, we can see we haven't gone that far, so now we know just to leave the day of hire where they are. And that really gives us our total headcount supply. So our bringing in our existing headcounts, our future headcounts to give us our overall supply. So as we walk through and play with some demand drivers and identify maybe if we have a reduction in customer count, how does that marry up to our supply? And it's hard to have a workforce conversation without talking about the financial impact of that. So what's the overall cost of the workforce, okay? So if we look here, we can see I've married this up against the reduction in workforce scenario by furloughing some contingent workers and maybe freezing all of our open recs. We can see exactly the cost savings that we have, and then we have it ramping back up starting in January 2021. But a very quick exercise if we need to come in and make any modifications to that. So now we have our supply, and we want to be able to marry that up with the demand. So let me navigate up to the job profile. So again, this is going to be a quick pre-COVID example, but as we have our customer growth, that is going to drive the demand and the number of consultants we have. We have assumptions that we have 100 customers per consultant, which is equating to 116 consultants. This is just an example of customer growth, but this demand driver could really be anything. If you're in manufacturing, it could be units. It could be initiatives or projects or some of the use cases I've seen with other customers. And then also here, another use case is being able to drive our call center, so our support call center. So now if we navigate to another, let's look at our HR working plan, we can immediately see the difference. So now just playing with some drivers, now we're assuming 155 customers per consultant, which equates to 75 consultants, but we can also bring in other assumptions. Well, how is that going to impact employee satisfaction if we're increasing the number of customers that a consultant is needing to manage? But most importantly, let's look at now post-COVID and what we have to deal with. In this case, we have a reduction in customers. So we're looking here, we could see we have a net reduction in customers. We're slowly ramping up as we go through out the 5 years, but immediately we can see the impact of our reduction in workforce. So we've gone from about 100 consultants to now we only need 63 consultants based on this customer growth. And then we can immediately marry this up against our supply. So looking at here, we see we have a lot of surplus. If we drill down specifically to our consulting services, we can see, okay, yeah, we have a surplus of within our consulting area and these specific job profiles, whereas if you look at our 2020 plan, it looks a little bit different. And if we look down to our consulting services, you can see it looks a little bit different where we have a deficit, okay? And then you can expand that to skills, so being able to do skills analysis, supply and demand. I'm going to go down to a specific job profile and customers, and then put this into presentation mode. So great if you're walking into a meeting and you need to project this. Or if you're remote and you need to project it, like we all are, you can easily do that in presentation mode. And you can identify the skills gap. So we're bringing in all those skills by individual. So we've gotten all of Chelsea's skills, and we're marrying this up against a job profile. So for a plan, we assume a job profile has a specific skill set that they need, and we're marrying those two up to be able to give us the deficit or surplus that we may have. And then we can immediately put that plan into action. So this was our pre-COVID plan. We have the deficit of those employees. So what do we need to do? Can we recruit? Can we develop? Can we transfer? And then we have assumptions or costs associated with each of those, and then we can see the overall cost impact. We can take this a little bit further and look at the targets. And we can break this down by year or by month. Let me navigate down to a specific level. We have our demand that we've calculated based on those customer growth in this case. We have the supply that we're bringing in from HCM. That's going to be our existing and our new open recs. That will give us, in this case, a deficit. So now we have the ability, levers to pull. Do we recruit? Do we develop? Do we transfer? But now let's flip over to our reduction of workforce, where in this case I broke it down by month because we want the ability to be able to easily change this month by month. So you can see here we had a deficit, and then as of May, which probably really could have been March, we're now having a surplus. So what do we do with that surplus for this specific job profile? And we have the costs associated with it, okay? So now as a manager, we have the ability, the target, to know that maybe we need to reduce our headcount by 12 people, okay? So that's where now from a manager perspective, we log in as Daryl, we can now build up that budget. And to do that, we're going to leverage the concept of processes. So processes guide users through in this case, a budget process. It could be a forecasting process. Assigns a due date, which will kick off a notification within Workday. This is great for user adoption for users that don't log into the system on a regular basis. We know we all don't like to plan that much, but you'll give us notes exactly what we have to do. You can have notes and collaboration back and forth. And then for someone that's managing the overall process, you can see where users are in the process. And you can see here now he only has a slice of the organization, or he can only see a slice of the organization within consulting services. But what we've done here is I've gone in and I've furloughed a few of our contingent workers. So the end date, the reason for that, and then when I assume that they're going to resume back to work. Okay. At this point too, we could come in, we can go ahead if we wanted to. We can promote Chelsea to a different job profile and then immediately be able to see the cost impact of that. So once I'm done, we can just move through that. We can adjust the workforce that he's done by furloughing all of those contingent workers. We can look at the open requisitions that we have. In this case, we've gone in and we've frozen all of the open requisitions, okay? So now we have, and we can identify now a new start date of January 4th, 2021. And then the next step is really just to explain any variances. So we immediately see the variance in the headcount, the open recs. But not only that, we see the cost impact. So we're saving over $1 million from a perspective of being able of just reducing the headcount by those 17. If we wanted to collaborate maybe with Logan, we can add a note. Reduce headcount. And then now she'll be able to come in and view that variance. And then the final step, we can review this departmental plan. I like to show this just to show the ability to be able to slice and dice their information by any dimension. So you can see all of these different dimensions we have available. We can go ahead and easily pivot that. So if we want to be able to look at our workers by job profile, by location, by management level. I also had another use case recently with a customer. They want to be able to look at the workers' preference. Do they want to be remote or do they want to go back into the office? And then being able to do the cost impact as well with that. So we can review that departmental plan, and then we can submit this plan. Now he has access to, or he is responsible for the entire consulting services. He could do one level by, approve one level at a time, or he can approve the whole level. And then this will approve all sub-levels. And then Logan will receive a notification that a plan has been submitted to her. So then if we navigate back to Logan and be able to review a report, and now she'll look at the view of the entire organization. She's not looking just at a specific slice of the organization. You're not having to run consolidations, aggregations. She's looking at the total supervisory org. And not only that, but she sees the note from Daryl. Okay? So truly just become full circle, being able to analyze, execute, and plan all within one location, one application. With that, Scott, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. I love seeing how all of that comes together. And hopefully you saw, some of the use cases that you're most interested in as we took a look at, the product itself. I saw definitely the cost and headcount planning, definitely, and then just kind of the scenario that I think all of you are going through of really creatively but thoughtfully planning perhaps reductions in force, but in a way that helps preserve, the talent that you need for recovery and even emerging stronger. Many of our customers, our 4,000 customers, adaptive planning customers, plus up to 5,000 now, I think, we're doing just these types of scenarios are currently today. In fact, I think we had a 30x increase in scenario planning activity, Stephanie, right after COVID hit, and that level of activity has remained quite high since. I don't have the latest update, but just a remarkable surge in scenario planning activity.
Yeah, I think it went from 20 times to 30 times in the last month. Wow.
Yeah. And as Stephanie demonstrated, Workday Adaptive Planning for the workforce leverages, all these insights from Workday Analytics, from Core, Prism, People Analytics, then provides really within the product itself that scale that you need to be able to model and plan your workforce company-wide, collaborating with other key stakeholders across the business through shared views and functionality to communicate back and forth via emails as well, and a workflow that goes with it. But in each one of these, really helping you to do all these, headcount and cost planning, strategic plans, just as Stephanie was able to demonstrate, drilling down to the position level and using that to drive some of your skills-based planning. So really planning the right workforce mix, so for today, in today's environment, and tomorrow, and balancing your organization's ability to respond, to recover, emerge stronger while preserving, again, your most valuable asset, your people. So all this requires really thoughtful collaborative planning, and this solution provides just that. So as the next slide, I want to just kind of give a nod to some of the use cases around the COVID environment that we're seeing today. This is a quote from a customer in the healthcare space. Really Workday helping this healthcare provider access the reporting analytics for workforce data instantly, and really helping them make better responses faster, transactional decisions in a time of urgency. And not here, but I'll offer you a quote in the workforce planning space, and this is from a senior project manager of enterprise solutions at one of our university customers who said, with Workday and adaptive planning, we can see what's going on in real time, and that gives us huge power in decision-making going forward. When COVID-19 first began, we were able to quickly pivot, delivering several items for finance and HR to help the university community make decisions and adjustments on the fly. Workday is one of those systems that required us to do nothing extra to enable a remote working environment. So really, really strong testimony to the flexibility of our solution. And of course, when it comes to resource capacity planning, Airbus provides a fantastic use case for how they've been able to utilize adaptive planning for the workforce to really help optimize, that backlog that I think we all know is years in length, and really so every one of those decisions to help optimize their workforce really reflects in revenue for the course of that particular year, quarter end year, as they deliver their performance to the market. Pinson Masons is a skills-based planning use case. Pinson Masons is a multinational legal firm based in the UK, but with offices in cities throughout Europe. And Pinson Masons was able to leverage adaptive insights really to help them as they were growing their business, opening up new offices and kind of using lessons learned for the skills they needed at the initial opening of an office, as well as it evolved and matured, and revenue was generated through caseloads, what's the support team around that that was required. So fantastic use case between those two to really, I think, demonstrate the flexibility, again, of the solution. So together, Workday, with our HCM best-in-class system, really for each one of these areas, for transactions, for analytics, and for planning, really kind of brings in that one experience that we're all seeking, because you're trying to make fast decisions. You want to be you want to ensure that you have reliable data in place so that you can collaboratively plan in a complete and comprehensive way across the business as necessary. And also note that we're spending an extraordinary amount of time trying to work on those points of interaction. So as we put our plans into motion, we're investing heavily in that process, turning, for example, a to-be hired rec into an actual rec that the recruiting team can use to open up a position and open up a job rec associated with that. So with that, I'd like to just leave you with, bringing it all together. Workday offers, insights that you need. It all begins with the people data, insights surface within Workday and blended with the external data for context, enabling faster, better decisions and plans. Agility, that need for business agility is evident more now than ever, but really enabling a more fluid workforce, whether it's in an up market or down market, and through external event shocks like we're seeing now. And connection, working with your colleagues and key stakeholders across the business to collaboratively analyze for the right action to take or the right plan to put into place based upon any number of scenarios with a common framework and a common experience that really creates a lot of value in a very short period of time. We've seen this firsthand in a number of our customers. And before we go to Q&A, I think we have a few minutes. I want to just introduce this slide, which I think is very powerful because it talks about how we're thinking about our customers' return to the workplace, our own internal customer at Workday, and specifically where I think workforce planning comes into play is in that site-based planning. So in order to keep within social distancing guidelines, whatever they may be, there's a facilities capacity component to that. That's the supply side. The demand is, getting our workers, return to work safely in the right phase. There's essential workers, non-essential workers, but maybe they're in a working environment remotely that is not conducive to their productivity, and getting them in, as soon as we can, but doing that within the constraints and in a safe way, looking at supplies of sanitization supplies and staffing to help enforce, some of the increased security for the office space. So it's a really important area. I think we're thankful to have solutions, to help provide that to you. We've seen a lot of uptake and interest there. And if you're interested in learning more, we just had did a webinar on that, and we can provide you some more details too. Just send us something in chat. We'll get the links. In fact, I believe we have a couple links for you as a resource on your screen. So with that, Stephanie, thank you so much for an awesome demo, and for you for hanging with us. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something of value, and that we can kind of help you move forward with next steps. I'd like to open it up to Q&A for just a little bit, see what we have. So we answered a few questions along the way. Stephanie, you can help me answer some of these as we go. I think the one that I was waiting for the end was from Darren, and Darren asked if you can, and I think he was referring to the part where you're talking about consulting. He asked, can you bring in project and services pricing to compare EE costs, so that's time and payroll, and expenses for profit and margin dashboards? So it looks like you did answer. Do you want to just share that answer with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very important point that you saw a lot. We have, the pre-built integration, obviously, with HCM and financials within Workday, but we are what I call system agnostic, so we can pull in data from any source system to be able to accurately plan and forecast. If that's something that you need to bring in to be able to plan, absolutely, we can bring that in.
Terrific.
Okay.
Let's see. We've got another question from April. She said, this is great. Will the video be emailed or posted online? And yes, it will. You'll be getting a recording, I believe, Amanda, following the call as soon as it's ready to go the next day or so, right? Hopefully she's online to say right. But yeah, we'll make sure we get to that. Let's see. Think you got it, Darren. We did have a question earlier about people analytics and whether it's part of Prism. And the answer is it's really built to interact very closely with Prism and leverage some of the power of Prism. You can purchase it separately, however. So I don't know what your particular use case, and this one was from Heather, if you already have Prism or you don't, but it is available regardless. I think it's limited availability now, but will be generally available by release 2 this fall. So I hope that answers your question and works within your guys' time frame. The other question that I got was, is people analytics considered predictive? And actually, it's not predictive. The augmented analytics that we talk about with people analytics is built on machine learning, graph processing, natural language generation, and pattern detection to help users see key insights faster. So the power really lies in its ability to surface these insights that maybe you don't catch yourself. And we all know that we're awash with a lot of information. So this ability to surface that, provide alerts for you is super powerful. Very dynamic, generating surface anomalies, for example, when it's looking at historical data, and allows you to drill down further for key details, many times within Prism in the scenarios that I've seen demonstrated. Stephanie, would you add anything to that?
No, I think that's great. That sums it up perfectly.
Wonderful. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Again, thank you all for attending. Really appreciate it. And please let us know how we can help you on your journeys.
Thank you, everybody.